Governor, thank you for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I know we've chatted with you on AZAM before. We've been looking forward to chatting with you, I think, again. And I think it's very fitting. It's on Election Day. I mean, not your Election Day, but a Election Day as well.
Yep.
And on a day, I think, where you released some information about prescription cards for a lot of Arizonans. I know it's kind of preliminary, some of the information we had in here, but what can you share with us about that?
Yeah, so this is a new tool that any Arizonan can get to lower their prescription drug costs. I've been very focused on ways that we can work to lower costs for Arizonans, and I know that prescription drugs are a big burden, and so this new card, AZRX, folks can use to lower their prescription costs.
I think it was up to 80%, right, on some of the prescriptions, that people may need really on a day-to-day basis. There's a couple of other states that are involved. How did Arizona get into the mix of making this happen?
So, when we learned about this multi-state consortium, it seemed like a win-win for Arizonans. It doesn't cost taxpayers any money. It saves Arizonans costs on their drugs. And we looked into it and decided to become a part of it.
Okay.
Let's talk about where things stand with SNAP benefits.
Yes.
I know it's been up and down, and people are really, concerned about it, understandably. Where does it stand right now? My understanding is the administration is going to free up some funds, maybe not all the funds that people were hoping for. Is there anything the state can do in the interim? What's the bottom line? Yeah.
So first of all, I share the concern that I know so many Arizonans are feeling right now. And it's been incredibly frustrating because the Trump administration really could have resolved this weeks ago, knowing that the shutdown was continuing and that they had these contingency funds, and they could have released them ahead of time so that states could be prepared. And now we're faced with this very confusing situation. So SNAP beneficiaries should have gotten their monthly benefits for November on Saturday, November 1st, and that did not happen. So now the Trump administration says they're releasing them, and this is because of a court order forcing them to. And so we just received guidance from the USDA, which is the department that administers those funds, this morning. The guidance is very confusing. And so for people that are relying on these benefits, it's still going to be a while before we can get them to them. We don't know when, and we're doing everything we can. I have told DES Director Weishart this is a top priority. We need to get these benefits as soon as possible, but we still have to understand the guidance coming from USDA. The amount of dollars in the contingency fund is about half of what's needed for the full month of November. So people that get those benefits, it will just be around half of them. So what the state has done, we have tried to do everything we can to mitigate. We found some ARPA dollars that we could reallocate. We announced last week that we were funding food banks to help mitigate the increased demand that we know that we're going to see. They're already seeing. We've already been hearing that, food is running short. We've called on Arizonans to step up. Arizonans always help our neighbors in need, and we need to really do that right now.
What was your experience the other day at St. Mary's? We had a camera out there. Yeah. We saw you. Did you have a chance to interact with people who are receiving some of the donated food at St. Mary's or other volunteers? Kind of what was your takeaway from the time you spent there?
Yeah, I spent most of the time talking to the volunteers, and St. Mary's relies on so much volunteer support to provide the tremendous amount of support to the community that they do. And for those volunteers, they seemed very concerned about what's coming, because they know that these services are already really stretched, and it's going to be more. And I think, what was really interesting to me, there's a line of cars, and that line is there every day, and that line doesn't let up for the whole time that those boxes are being distributed. And it's just unimaginable to me, thinking about if that's how I knew I could put food on the table, and that resource going away.
You know, you bring up a point with people. It's very difficult, I think, for a lot of Arizona families who may be watching this morning as well. And if you have thoughts or questions for the governor, please post them in the chat. We read it. It's very active. You at one point as well, and I always like to kind of peel back the layers. You're very open about growing up here in the Valley from Tempe. I'm from Tempe as well. And you have been through some challenges as well. Can you share a little bit? There were days when you had a tough time putting food on the table for your family, and we were talking about it here in the studio yesterday, and I said, I think she drove for Uber at one point, and somebody said, is that true?
Yeah, is that,
and I said,
is that an urban legend, or is it really true?
No. Yeah, so do please share some of your life experience.
Yeah, it is real. So growing up, my dad was the sole breadwinner for our family, and I just saw my parents work really hard, but there were times where my dad wasn't working. He was, in a volatile industry, and when he wasn't working, my parents got SNAP benefits, and it's what made sure we had food on the table. And I remember a lot of times during those times that it was just really hard. My mom struggled with the stigma of having those benefits and using them at the grocery store. And, I think a lot of that experience is really what led me into a career in social work. But, my husband and I struggled too during the Great Recession, raising our kids. We've lost a house to foreclosure, and many, many times had those hard kitchen table conversations and worried about how we were going to pay the bills. And I drove for Uber to make sure my kids had Christmas presents one year.
Yeah. I mean, it's like for a lot of Arizona families right now, it's do I pay my rent or do I feed my family? We do have a question from Monica in Shluck Buyer. She's in the chat. She says, how is the card that she's referencing the prescription card we were chatting about a moment ago? How is it different from the Good RX discount card?
That is a great question. And it does provide a similar discount. The difference is that this is a consortium that is led by states, and our sole focus is ensuring that our residents can get discounts on their prescription drugs. There's different privacy around it, so we're not selling the information. We're not in it for any kind of profit. We just want to make sure Arizonans can benefit. And Arizona people can go to get more information at AZDHS, so that's Department of Health Services, .gov/AZRX.
Okay, and we put the website in the chat, by the way, so we have it in there.
Great.
Thank you. Great information.
Okay, so what would you say, Governor, are going to be 1 year from now? People are going to go to the polls in our election here in Arizona. We're keeping an eye, of course, on what's going on back east right now. It'll be really fascinating.
Yes.
But what would you say if you had to hone in on 2 or 3 issues between you and we have a number? By the way, we've reached out to the Republican candidates. We hope they'll come join us here on Fox 10 Talks. What are going to be the 2 or 3 biggest issues in your mind?
Well, I can say with confidence that I have been laser focused on the issues that matter most to Arizonans: lowering costs, securing the border, continuing to create good paying jobs. And while I'm continue to be focused on what matters to Arizonans, I can say that my 3 opponents are focused on the chaos in Washington, D.C. And, they 2 of them voted for the terrible Washington budget that's going to hurt Arizonans. The third one cheered it on with them. And despite the impacts it will have on Arizonans, hundreds of thousands of Arizonans will lose their health care. Rural hospitals are under threat of closure. The SNAP benefits we just talked about, those are being drastically reduced under that bill. The tariff war that Washington is waging, it's the biggest tax that Americans have experienced maybe ever. It's all causing a lot of damage in Arizona, and I'm focused on doing what I can to continue to deliver for Arizonans, and they're supporting all of those policies.
I think this might be a good time to go to a question. We, over the last couple of days, have been inviting our viewers to send in a question. Okay. This is a very long question, so I'm going to try to kind of condense it a little bit. But this comes from Tim in Cave Creek. Please ask Governor Hobbs why she's supporting Chuck Schumer and his team for continuing to shut down the government over Obamacare, and why she thinks it's okay for hardworking, equitable employees with decent medical care from their employers to pay for Obamacare. And then he continues, nothing is free in this country. Politicians on each side are to blame for all of this. So How do you react to that?
I agree 100% that politicians on both sides are to blame for this. And I don't support the politics of this shutdown that are harming Arizonans. And I've said over and over again, I'm focused on what Arizonans need. I mean, we just talked about the chaos and confusion around SNAP benefits. Those aren't being delivered because the government is shut down. And there's a lot of harm. People are waiting in longer lines at the airport. Flights are being canceled as we head into the busy holiday season. Federal employees are still working and they're not getting paid. And we have a lot of those in Arizona. Our parks that need tourism, it helps our economy. It helps small businesses across the state. They're operating, but with bare bones. And so that's impacting the economy. I want Washington politicians to do what we did here in Arizona when the extremists in the legislature sent a partisan budget that cut services and left Arizona families behind. I vetoed them, and I forced them back to the table. And we passed a bipartisan and balanced budget. And we did that because we were focused on delivering for Arizonans and not the politics. And Arizonans need our elected leaders in Washington to not play political games, but to solve these problems.
So would you advise the Democrats in the Senate? I know there are some centrist Democrats who are saying, look, pass the budget, get the government reopened, and then let's negotiate on the Obamacare subsidies. Which way would you come down on that, or continue to vote no?
Look, I don't want to get – they have their politics. They have chosen this battle. The president is the executive. And he's the one who should be calling people to the table. And he is walking away from this like he has no responsibility here. And so, I mean, there was a lavish party at Mar-a-Lago on Friday night for Halloween, while on the eve of people losing these benefits that they rely on. I heard a Phoenix mom on the radio earlier today talking about how her 15-year-old son comes home from high school and he's hungry and she doesn't have groceries and he's just going to school now so he can get breakfast and lunch. I mean, it is heart-wrenching to hear these stories. And the president has done nothing to try to bring the sides together and negotiate a solution that keeps this from happening.
You know, if we could go back to also the election that Ron mentioned not too long ago, why run again? Tell us what you're hoping to do in running again.
Well, I think that Arizona is stronger because I have focused on putting politics aside and working across the aisle to deliver for Arizonans. I've taken on tough challenges that career politicians have ignored for years. I know there's more to do, and I'm ready to get it done.
When it comes to jobs, Arizona has really become the epicenter of the semiconductor industry, at least in the U.S., maybe in the world. What are you doing, or what can you do at the state level to continue to boost our, I don't even want to say image, our creds, I guess, our credentials around the world that this is the place to be, and create potentially even thousands more jobs?
Yeah, no, this is the place to be, not just for semiconductors, but all kinds of advanced manufacturing. A few weeks ago, we held SemiCon West here, and that is the premier semiconductor conference in North America. And there was so much buzz about it. In its 50-year history, this is the first time they have been outside of Silicon Valley. The first time it's been in Arizona, and there was a lot of buzz about keeping it here. So that sort of just solidifies where we are in terms of the semiconductor industry in the United States. But it didn't happen by accident, and it didn't happen overnight. It happened because we worked to understand the needs. We've been working to not just bring these big manufacturers, but the whole supply chain that they rely on. We've since 2021, I believe we've had 60 new semiconductor announcements totaling $210 billion. And all of that is good because it means good paying jobs for Arizonans, jobs that don't necessarily need a college degree. But we need to make sure that Arizonans know about those opportunities and that we are creating the pipeline for them to get into those opportunities. So we've made tremendous investments in workforce, working with industry, with our community colleges and our universities, and creating the training that Arizonans need to get these good paying jobs.
So we just have about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I just have one quick question on the semiconductor thing. It does take a lot of water to create the semiconductor manufacturing plants, and we're in the middle of a drought. How do you balance that?
So that's one of those tough issues that career politicians have ignored for a long time. We're tackling water head on so that we can meet these challenges, continue to grow, and bring the industries that are growing in Arizona.
Just a couple. We need to get the fun part of the interview out of the way before we say our goodbyes to the governor. You're a triathlete. Tell us when you first got into this, and does that eat up a lot of your time?
Well, I haven't done a triathlon for a long time, but I was a runner, and I just kind of got bored with just running, and I had some friends that were doing triathlons, so I was like, oh, that looks fun. I'll do that too.
Oh my goodness, that looks like fun. And you're a twin. Are you a twin?
I'm identical twin. Yes.
Okay, so when your sister is out and about, are they like, hey, Governor Hobbs?
Yes, all the time.
You know? Right. And is she like, you know what? I'll lower taxes for you. I'm going to lower gas prices. And then you're like, sis, what's up? What's happening?
So do you have time for any other holidays, any other hobbies besides, I know you love to go out and go cycling. People might see you out there on your bicycle.
Yeah.
What other maybe hobbies or that kind of a thing maybe shed some insight into you that might surprise people?
Anything outdoors, which is what makes Arizona such a great place to be. Hiking, kayaking.
Do you talk to your parents about politics? Ooh. And what do they say to you?
So a little bit. Our household growing up was not a political household. My parents voted. It was something that they took a lot of pride in. My mom took me to the voting booth, but never told me how she voted because, that is a sacred, the private ballot is.
So they never told you, hey, we're Democrat, we're Republican growing up, or did you know?
I think they were Republican, but they weren't like. We didn't talk about it. Yeah. It was like, and so I probably registered as a Democrat when I first registered to vote because they were Republican, and you do the opposite of your parents, right?
Good point.
But no, I think more we just talk about. Like, I love talking to them and hearing like everyday Arizonan perspectives on how regular people think about what's going on in the governor's office or around the state. So,
and I think talking about, just your regular life, the life that we all have, what you shared about Uber. I was reading through your bio. You and your husband met at church?
Yes.
Tell us that story.
So we were both right out of college, and we were young adult volunteers at Resurrection Church in Tempe, which we had both been raised Catholic and both pretty engaged in our church community. With me, it was the example of my parents set for me. And so, we were volunteering with the youth group at Resurrection Church in Tempe.
And the youth pastor, did he conduct the ceremony, or who married you?
It was actually a priest that we had both worked with youth work,
Okay, great. You went to Seton High School, right?
I did.
Yeah, Seton Catholic High School in the East Valley.
Yeah.
Well, you're always welcome here as a guest on Fox 10 Talks. I feel like we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, and don't send your twin sister in next time, okay?
I will not. She's a teacher, so she's probably in the classroom right now.
Yeah. So wonderful.
You got a great staff. We've enjoyed talking with them as well. And this is the whole reason we launched this show is so that it's not just a minute on the soundbite in the news, but let's talk for 20 minutes about the big issues and maybe some fun stuff too.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
In.
Yeah. Thank you.